There is a waxy substance your body cannot live without, something your own liver quietly builds by the gram every single day that nonetheless shows up on a blood test page looking like a wanted poster. We have somehow turned one of biology's most essential ingredients into a villain, and almost nobody stops to ask how that happened, or whether it is even fair. So let me ask you a strange question to start. What if the thing you have been told to fear is something you would die without? Not exaggerate to die, not feel a bit unwell to die, but genuinely cease to function die. Because that is the honest truth about cholesterol. And once you really understand what it is and what it does, the whole confusing story of high cholesterol and how to bring it down suddenly makes a kind of quiet sense. So let us slow right down and build it from the ground up, the way you would explain it to someone you love. Here is the first surprise. You probably think of cholesterol as something you eat, something that sneaks in on the back of a fried breakfast or a slab of cheese, hiding in your food, waiting to clog you up. But that is mostly not where it comes from. Your body makes the great majority of its own cholesterol from scratch. Your liver is the main factory, with your intestines helping out, and these organs are turning out cholesterol all day and all night, whether or not you eat a single bite of it. If you ate none at all, your body would simply make more. That one fact that most of the cholesterol in your blood is built by you and not delivered by your dinner is the loose thread that, when you pull it, unravels almost every myth in this whole subject. So why on earth would your body bother making something it has apparently been told is dangerous? Because it is not dangerous in itself. It is foundational. Let me give you the picture. Every cell in your body is wrapped in a thin, oily skin called a membrane, a kind of soft boundary that holds the cell together and decides what gets in and what stays out. Cholesterol is woven right into that skin. It is what stops the membrane from being too floppy or too stiff. Think of it like the right amount of give in a good mattress, firm enough to hold its shape, soft enough to move with you. Without cholesterol, your cells could not hold themselves together properly. You are, in a very real sense, partly built out of the stuff. And it does not stop there. Cholesterol is the raw material, the starting block for a whole family of things your body needs to run. Your stress hormone, cortisol, the one that gets you out of bed and helps you handle a hard day, is built from cholesterol. So is aldosterone, which helps balance the salt and water in your body. So are the sex hormones, testosterone and estrogen and progesterone, the chemicals behind so much of how a body grows and changes through life. Your body even uses cholesterol, with a little help from sunlight on your skin, to make vitamin D. And here is one more, a quietly clever one. Your liver turns cholesterol into bile, a kind of natural detergent your gut squirts onto fatty food, so you can actually absorb it and absorb the fat-soluble vitamins riding along with it, vitamins A and D and E and K. So pause and take that in. Your cell walls, your stress hormones, your sex hormones, your vitamin D, your ability to digest fat. Cholesterol sits underneath all of it. This is not a poison your body grudgingly tolerates. This is essential cargo. And that word cargo is the one I want you to hold on to, because it is going to carry us through this entire story. Here is the problem the cargo has though. Cholesterol is oily, it is a kind of fat, and your blood is mostly water. And you already know from every salad dressing you have ever shaken that oil and water do not mix. So your body has a logistics problem. It needs to move this essential oily cargo through a watery river, your bloodstream, to every corner of you. You cannot just dip oil into a river and expect it to arrive where you want it. It would clump and separate and go nowhere useful. So your body does something genuinely elegant. It packs the cargo into trucks. These trucks are called lipoproteins, and that name is just a description of what they are. Lipo means fat, protein is, well, protein. So lipoprotein is a little package with a fatty cargo on the inside and a protein and water-friendly shell on the outside. The shell lets the truck travel through your watery blood without the oily cargo ever touching the water directly. It is the same trick as a delivery van carrying frozen goods through a hot city. The cargo stays sealed, the van handles the journey. And from here on, I want you to picture your bloodstream as a vast network of roads, and these lipoproteins as the trucks moving up and down them, delivering and collecting cargo, day and night, never stopping. Now you have almost certainly heard of two of these trucks, even if you did not know that is what they were. LDL and HDL. People call them bad cholesterol and good cholesterol. And I want to gently retire that phrase right now, because it is not quite true and it has confused a generation. LDL and HDL are not types of cholesterol at all. They are types of trucks. The cargo inside, the cholesterol, is the same essential stuff in both. What differs is what the trucks are doing with it. LDL stands for low-density lipoprotein, and you can forget the jargon and just remember its job. The LDL truck is the delivery truck. It leaves the liver loaded with cholesterol cargo and drives it out along the roads of your bloodstream to drop it off at the cells that need it. Building materials going out to the building sites. That is a completely necessary job. Without delivery trucks, your tissues do not get the cholesterol they need. So LDL is not evil. It is the courier. The trouble, as we will see, only starts when there are too many trucks on the road or when the roads themselves are in bad repair. HDL stands for high-density lipoprotein, and its job is roughly the opposite. The HDL truck is the clean-up truck. It travels the roads picking up spare cholesterol, cargo that has been left lying around where it should not be, and carries it back toward the liver to be dealt with. The recycling run, the street sweeper. So when people say HDL is the good one, what they really mean is that the clean-up crew is helpful, and that is fair enough as far as it goes. But notice the framing. There is no good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. There is the same cargo riding in delivery trucks or clean-up trucks on a network of roads. Hold that picture steady because everything else hangs off it. Now here is where the science has quietly moved on, and it is worth your attention because it changes how the smartest doctors now think. For years, the number everyone watched was your LDL cholesterol, often written LDL-C, and that number tells you how much cholesterol cargo is packed inside your LDL trucks in total. It is the weight of the cargo. But it turns out that is not quite the question that matters most. The question that matters most is closer to this. How many trucks are on the road? Let me explain why those are different. Imagine two delivery fleets carrying the same total weight of cargo. One fleet does it with a small number of big, fully loaded trucks. The other does it with a huge number of little, half-empty trucks. Same total cargo, very different number of vehicles on the road, and it turns out the number of trucks is what really drives the danger, because every single truck is a chance for cargo to end up in the wrong place. So how do you count the trucks? There is a marker for that. Every one of these harmful delivery type particles carries exactly one copy of a particular protein on its shell, a protein called apolyprotein B, or ApoB for short. One truck, one ApoB tag. So if you measure ApoB, you are essentially counting the trucks, not just weighing the cargo. And here is the part that genuinely matters for real people. Sometimes the cargo weight and the truck count disagree. Your LDL cholesterol number can look reassuring while your truck count is quietly high, or the other way around. Doctors call that discordance, which just means the two measures are telling different stories. It tends to happen in people with high triglycerides, with diabetes, with the cluster of issues called metabolic syndrome. Exactly the situations that are so common these days, and a 2025 review found that when you look at how well these markers predict who actually gets heart disease, the truck count, ApoB, came out ahead of the old cargo weight number in study after study. That is why the latest guidance from major heart and lipid organizations in 2025 is leaning toward using ApoB more often, especially for people whose risk sits in the murky middle and who need a clearer read. So if you ever get the chance to know your ApoB, it is worth asking about. It counts the trucks. But here is the strange part, and I promised you this story would have a twist or two. Even a road full of trucks, even a high truck count, does not automatically hurt you. The cargo does not just leap out and attack you. For cholesterol to actually cause harm, something has to go wrong with the road. Let me show you how the damage really happens, because this is the single most misunderstood thing in the whole subject. And once you see it, you will never think about cholesterol the same way again. Your blood vessels, your arteries, are not just dumb pipes. The inside surface of every artery is lined with a living, delicate layer of cells, smooth and slick, called the endothelium. Picture the perfect road surface, freshly laid, no cracks, no potholes. When that road surface is healthy and intact, trucks just drive over it, deliver their cargo, and move on. No problem. The cargo stays in the trucks on the road where it belongs. But that road surface can get damaged. And this is the heart of the whole story, so let me name the things that damage it. High blood pressure pounds at the road, like heavy traffic on a thin surface. High blood sugar, the kind you get with diabetes or heading toward it, makes the surface brittle and rough. Smoking is like pouring acid on the road. The chemicals in cigarette smoke chew directly at that delicate lining. And a general state of inflammation and oxidative stress, which is a fancy way of saying a kind of slow internal rusting, wears the surface thin. So you get cracks. You get potholes. You get a rough, damaged stretch of road. Now watch what happens. When an LDL truck drives over a cracked stretch of road, some of its cargo can slip out of the truck and lodge in the crack, working its way under the road surface into the wall beneath. And once cholesterol cargo gets stuck under the road surface, it starts to spoil. It oxidizes, which you can think of as going rancid, the way oil left out turns bad. And your body, very reasonably, treats this rancid material as a problem to be cleaned up. So it sends in its repair, and defense crew, immune cells from your blood, to deal with the mess. These immune cells, called macrophages, which literally means big eaters, do exactly what their name suggests. They crawl into the wall and start gobbling up the spoiled cholesterol cargo, trying to clear it away. But here is the tragedy of it. There is too much. The cells eat and eat until they are so stuffed with fatty cargo that they bloat up into what scientists actually call foam cells. Because under a microscope, they look foamy, packed full of fat. And a clump of these bloated cells, sitting in the artery wall, is the very first visible sign of trouble. It even has a gentle-sounding name, a fatty streak. That is the seed of everything that follows. Because now you have a mess in the wall and a clean-up crew that cannot keep up, and that draws in more immune cells and more spoiled cargo, and the whole thing becomes a slow, smoldering fire of inflammation that will not go out. The wall thickens. It builds up a lump, and that lump has a name you have heard, like, this is atherosclerosis, the slow furring up of the arteries, and now you understand what it actually is. It is not cargo being evil. It is cargo getting stuck in damaged road, going rancid, and triggering a repair effort that turns into a chronic mess. And here is why it can suddenly turn deadly, which is the part that makes this worth taking seriously. That lump of plaque has a kind of cap over it, holding it in place in the wall. If the cap stays stable, the plaque just sits there, narrowing the road, a slow problem. But if the cap is thin and inflamed, it can tear open. And when it tears, your body sees what looks like a wound and does what it does with any wound. It forms a clot to seal it, except this clot forms right inside the artery, and it can block the road completely in seconds. Block the road to a patch of heart muscle, and that is a heart attack. Block the road to a patch of brain, and that is a stroke. That is the whole grim chain, from a crack in the road to a clot. And now you can see every link in it. So let me say the thing this picture makes obvious, because it reframes everything. Two things have to come together for harm. You need trucks carrying cargo, yes, but you also need damaged road. More trucks, a higher LDL, and ApoB, means more chances for cargo to lodge in any crack that exists. But damaged road from high blood pressure, high blood sugar, smoking, inflammation, is what opens the cracks in the first place. It is the traffic and the road together, never just the cargo. Hold that, because it is about to explain the entire modern epidemic. So now we can finally ask the real question, the one in the title. Why is cholesterol high in so many people these days? Why does it feel like half the people you know are on a tablet for it or have been told to watch their numbers? And the honest answer is that the modern world is almost perfectly designed to put too many trucks on the road and tear up the road surface at the same time. Let me walk you through it, piece by piece, because every piece is something you can actually do something about. The first big driver is the modern diet, and not in the way you have been told. The single biggest dietary change of the last several decades is the rise of ultra-processed food. Now that phrase gets thrown around, so let me be precise about what it means. Ultra-processed food is not just food that has been cooked or packaged. It is food that has been industrially taken apart and rebuilt with ingredients you would never find in a home kitchen, refined starches, processed oils, added sugars, and a long list of additives, all engineered to be cheap, long-lasting, and almost impossible to stop eating. Think of the soft, sweet, salty, snackable stuff that makes up so much of a modern shopping trolley. And these foods hit your cholesterol in a 1-2 punch. First, they are loaded with refined carbohydrates and free sugars, the kind of fast, burning fuel that spikes your blood sugar and your insulin again and again, all day long. We will come back to why that matters in a moment, because it is central. Second, many of them carry a lot of saturated fat, and saturated fat is the dietary factor that most reliably nudges your LDL, your delivery truck cargo, upward. So ultra-processed food quietly raises your trucks and roughs up your roads at the same time. Population studies link heavy intake of these foods to higher rates of diabetes, high blood pressure, disordered cholesterol, and obesity, all the road-damaging conditions at once. It is, unfortunately, a very efficient way to get into trouble. The second big driver runs underneath the first, and it is the one most people have never had explained to them, so let me take my time. It is called insulin resistance. Insulin is a hormone your body releases whenever you eat, especially when you eat carbohydrates and sugar. Its job is to tell your cells to take sugar out of the blood and use it or store it. Think of insulin as a key that unlocks your cells so the sugar can get in. Now, if you flood your body with refined carbs and sugar day after day, year after year, your cells get tired of hearing the message. They stop responding properly to the key. The lock gets sticky. That is insulin resistance. Your body has to shout louder and louder, pumping out more and more insulin just to get the same job done. And this sticky lock state does something specific and nasty to your trucks. It changes the whole pattern of fats in your blood. Three things happen together, and doctors see this trio, so often they treat it as a signature. Your triglycerides, another kind of fat in the blood, go up. Your HDL, your helpful cleanup trucks, go down. And most importantly, the character of your LDL delivery trucks changes. Instead of a smaller number of big, buoyant trucks, you start producing a swarm of small, dense ones. And those small, dense trucks are exactly the ones that slip most easily into cracks in the road and lodge there. So insulin resistance does not just raise a number, it produces precisely the kind of traffic that does the most damage. This is the metabolic engine humming under so much modern high cholesterol, and you will notice it is driven in large part by the same ultra-processed, sugary, refined diet we just talked about. The pieces connect. Excess weight, especially weight carried around the middle, tends to travel hand in hand with insulin resistance, each making the other worse, which is the third driver. The fourth is simply not moving. We sit. We sit in cars, at desks, on sofas, for hours and hours that no human body evolved to sit. Physical movement is one of the most direct ways to improve every part of this picture, to help your cells respond to insulin again, to lift your clean up trucks, to calm the inflammation on the roads, and when we sit all day, we hand all of that back. The fifth driver is smoking, and you already know why it belongs here, because we met it earlier. Smoking is acid on the road. It directly damages the delicate artery lining, and it speeds up the spoiling of cholesterol cargo once it is stuck in the wall. It hits both halves of the problem, the road and the cargo, which is part of why it is so uniquely bad for your heart. The sixth is the fats themselves, and here I want to be careful and honest, because this is where a lot of bad advice lives. The clearest villains among the fats are the industrial trans fats, artificially altered fats that were once common in margarines and packaged baked goods. These are genuinely the worst offenders for heart risk, and thankfully many countries have moved to get them out of the food supply. After that, saturated fat, the kind found in large amounts in fatty meats, butter, and a lot of processed food, does reliably raise your LDL cargo, which is why the dietary guidance in many places suggests keeping saturated fat under about 1/10 of your daily calories. But, and this matters, the story is not simply fat bad, no fat good. We will come back to it, because how you swap your fats turns out to matter more than just cutting them. And the seventh driver is the one you cannot change, and I do not want to skip it, because pretending it does not exist is unkind to the people living with it. Genetics, some people are simply dealt a harder hand. There is an inherited condition called familial hypercholesterolaemia, where a faulty gene means the body cannot clear LDL trucks from the blood properly, so cholesterol runs very high from birth, through no fault of the person at all, no matter how carefully they eat. People with this condition can have heart trouble strikingly young, and here is the quiet, sad gift those families have given the rest of us in understanding. Because we can see in them that a lifetime of very high LDL leads to early heart disease, even when nothing else is wrong, they have helped prove, beyond real doubt, that long-term high LDL genuinely causes artery disease. It is not a coincidence. It is cause and effect. We will honor that fully in a moment. But first, let me clear up the single most confusing thing in this entire subject. The thing that has caused more crossed wires at more kitchen tables than almost anything in health. The cholesterol you eat is not the same as the cholesterol in your blood, and the link between them is far weaker than you were probably taught. Remember the very first surprise of this whole script. Your body makes most of its own cholesterol, so when you eat cholesterol in an egg, say, your body, for the most part, simply makes a little less of its own to compensate. It is self-correcting, like a thermostat. For most people, eating cholesterol-rich food has only a modest effect on the cholesterol in their blood. This is such an important correction that the official dietary guidance in the United States actually dropped its old specific daily limit on dietary cholesterol back in 2015 because the evidence just did not support treating it as the main lever. And the egg, poor maligned egg, has been quietly let off much of the hook. A 2025 randomized study comparing the effects found that the saturated fat in a meal raised LDL more than the cholesterol from eggs did. The headline there is worth sitting with. It is not the cholesterol in the egg doing most of the damage. It is the company the egg keeps, the saturated fat, the refined toast, the processed meat beside it, and the overall pattern of the whole diet. Now let me be scrupulously fair, because honesty is the whole point of this channel. This does not mean dietary cholesterol is irrelevant for absolutely everyone. There is a minority of people, sometimes called hyper-responders, whose blood cholesterol does climb more than average when they eat a lot of it, and eating a dozen eggs a day is not some magic free pass. The honest, careful statement is this. For most people, the cholesterol in their food matters far less than they were led to believe, and the overall pattern of the diet, the refined carbs, the sugar, the saturated and trans fats, the lack of fiber, the mountain of ultra-processed food matters far more. That is the current understanding, and it is a genuine relief because it points your effort at the things that actually move the needle. So let me also briefly and respectfully walk you past a few things that promise to help and do not, because avoiding them is part of the path. You may have heard people claim that high cholesterol does not really raise heart risk at all, or that the medicines for it are a scam. I have to be direct with you here. That claim is not a brave minority view. It is contradicted by the inherited disease evidence we just discussed, by decades of population data, and by large randomized trials. Leading cardiologists have described that denial bluntly as dangerous. There is a real and respectable scientific debate at the edges about exactly how much benefit there is for the lowest risk people and about side effects, and that debate is healthy. But the core fact that long-term high LDL drives artery disease is about as settled as science gets. Please do not let anyone talk you out of it. You may also see products promising a cholesterol detox or a cleanse, some pill or tea that flushes it out. Save your money. Your liver and kidneys and gut already clear your body continuously. That is their day job. There is no special flush that meaningfully lowers your heart risk, and these supplements are unregulated and occasionally harmful. The same caution applies to so-called natural statins like red yeast rice. It is not really a clean natural alternative at all. It happens to contain a compound chemically identical to a real statin drug, but in unregulated, wildly varying amounts, sometimes contaminated, with the same possible side effects, and none of the quality control. If you want that effect, the honest route is the regulated medicine discussed with a doctor. And while we are clearing the decks, that fashionable phrase adrenal fatigue, the idea that your stress glands burn out and need special supplements is not a recognized medical condition. Reviews of the evidence find nothing to it, and the supplements sold for it are best left on the shelf. Great. We have built the whole machine, and we have cleared away the rubbish. So now for the part you actually came for. If your cholesterol is high, what are the best ways to bring it down? And the good news, the genuinely encouraging news, is that almost every lever maps directly onto something we have already explained. You are not memorizing a random list of rules. You are fixing the traffic and repairing the road on purpose with full understanding. Let me give you the levers in plain order. The foundation, the thing that comes first and underneath everything else, is what you eat, shifted toward whole, minimally processed food and away from the ultra-processed. Notice I did not say a punishing diet of misery. I said a shift in pattern. And within that shift, one ingredient deserves a special mention because it does something almost magical and most people overlook it. Fiber. Specifically, the soft, gluey kind called soluble or viscous fiber, the sort you find in oats, in beans and lentils, in apples, in a supplement called psyllium. Here is the trick it pulls. Remember that your liver makes bile out of cholesterol and squirts it into your gut to digest fat. Normally, your body reabsorbs that bile and reuses it, but soluble fiber grabs hold of the bile in your gut like a sponge and drags it out of the body before it can be reabsorbed. So your liver has to pull more cholesterol out of your blood to make fresh bile to replace it. The fiber, in effect, makes you spend down your cholesterol. Around 10 grams a day of psyllium can lower LDL by something in the region of 5 to 10%, and treat that as an approximate figure, but the mechanism is rock solid. There is a clever companion to fiber worth knowing about called plant sterols and stanols found naturally in plants and added to some spreads and drinks. They work by a different trick. They look so similar to cholesterol that they crowd it out at the gut wall, blocking some of it from being absorbed in the first place. Stack these tools together, the viscous fiber, the plant sterols, plus soy protein and a handful of nuts each day, and you get something researchers have named the portfolio diet because it is a portfolio of small lowering effects that add up. Combined and treating the exact size as approximate, that pattern can lower LDL by an amount that starts to approach what a low dose of medicine might do just from food. That should genuinely hearten you. Your fork is not a weak instrument. The second lever is the fat swap, and this is where I get to keep my earlier promise. The single most useful move with fats is not simply to cut them all, but to swap the harmful ones for better ones. When you replace saturated fat with unsaturated fat, the kind in olive oil, in nuts and seeds, in avocado, and especially the polyunsaturated kind in oily fish and many plant oils, your total and LDL cholesterol come down, and crucially, studies show fewer heart attacks and fewer heart deaths follow. That is the gold standard of evidence, not just a better number on a page, but a better life. So it is butter swapped for olive oil, the fatty processed meat swapped for fish or beans, and the industrial trans fats avoided altogether. Swap, do not just subtract. The third lever is to cut down hard on the ultra-processed foods, the refined carbohydrates, And the added sugar, which we now know, feeds the insulin resistance that builds those small, dense, dangerous delivery trucks. Every meal you shift from a packaged, engineered product towards something closer to its natural form, a piece of fruit instead of a sweet drink, a bowl of oats instead of a sugary cereal, a home cooked plate instead of a takeaway, eases the whole machine. You are turning the truck factory down and helping the road heal at the same time. The fourth lever is movement, and you do not need to become an athlete. Regular physical activity, even brisk walking that you actually keep up, helps your cells listen to insulin again, lifts your protective clean up trucks, helps with weight, and calms the inflammation on your artery walls. It pulls several levers at once, which is why doctors keep coming back to it. The fifth lever, losing excess weight, if you are carrying it, tends to improve every single one of these measures together. The triglycerides, the HDL, the truck pattern, the blood pressure, because so much of this is interconnected. And the sixth lever, if it applies to you, is stopping smoking, which does more for your road surface than almost anything else available to you and starts helping remarkably quickly. That is the lifestyle foundation, and I want to be clear about its place. It is genuinely first line. It is not the weak option you do instead of real treatment. It is the real treatment, the ground everything else is built on. But, and this is the seventh lever, sometimes lifestyle alone is not enough, and that is not a failure on your part. Sometimes the genetics or the level of risk or how high the numbers are means you need medicine as well. And here the honest news is very good indeed. The main medicines are called statins, and they work in a beautifully logical way once you understand the factory. Remember that your liver makes most of your cholesterol. Statins gently turn down a key step in that internal production line. With less being made inside, the liver pulls more cholesterol out of your blood to make up the difference, which lowers the cargo on the roads. The strong versions can bring LDL down by half or more. And the reason doctors trust them is not just that they move a number. Large, long-term trials, run over many years on many thousands of people, show that statins led to real reductions in heart attacks, in strokes, and in deaths. Real events, real lives, not just a tidier blood test. And if a statin alone is not enough, or someone genuinely cannot tolerate it, there are now several other medicines that lower cholesterol by different routes, and they can be added on. One blocks absorption of cholesterol in the gut. Another, a more recent kind, helps your liver clear LDL trucks from the blood more aggressively. Another reduces how much the liver makes by a different mechanism and is useful for people who struggle with statins. Doctors usually start with a statin, then add a second medicine if needed, then a third, climbing the ladder only as far as a given person actually needs. I will mention gently and fairly that statins do have a real and sometimes debated side effect profile, occasional muscle aches, a small effect on blood sugar in some people, and these are worth an honest conversation with your doctor. I will also mention, just as fairly, that side effects are often over-reported online, partly through what is called the nocebo effect, where expecting a problem helps create the feeling of one. The point is not to fear the medicine or worship it, but to weigh it with a professional against your own real risk. And that word, risk, brings me to the most important practical thing I can tell you, the thing that turns all of this understanding into something useful. Whether your cholesterol number is a problem at all, and what to do about it, depends enormously on the rest of your picture. Your age, your blood pressure, whether you have diabetes, whether you smoke, your family history, your ApoB, if you can get it. The very same LDL number can be fine in one person and a warning in another, because it is the combination, the trucks and the roads and the years, that determines the real danger, which is exactly why a number on a page can never tell the whole story by itself, and why this is a conversation to have with a real clinician who can see all of you. So let me say the necessary thing plainly, because your well-being matters more than any neat ending. Everything I have told you here is general education, an honest map of how this system works. It is not medical advice for your particular body, and it cannot be. I do not know your numbers, your history, or your risk. So please get tested. Ask your doctor about your cholesterol, and if you can, about your ApoB. Talk through what your numbers mean in the context of the whole you, and decide together what, if anything, to do. Reading is the beginning of understanding. It is not a substitute for the conversation that is actually about you. Let me bring this gently home, because there is a human truth underneath all the biology. Almost everyone listening to this knows someone, a parent, a friend, a neighbor, who has been handed a slip of paper with a high number on it and a quiet jolt of fear and not much real explanation. That gap between the frightening number and the actual understanding is where so much needless worry lives and so many bad decisions get made from the cleans that does nothing to the denial that does harm. Closing that gap, person by person, kitchen table by kitchen table, is honestly its own kind of community care. The neighbor who explains calmly what the test really means, the friend who walks with you because moving is easier together, the local doctor who knows your whole story, not just your numbers. And that is the small, real reason I do this at all. This channel is about understanding the hidden systems behind everyday life, and your own body is the most everyday system of all. The same instinct that we are all better off when the people around us understand things and help each other is the thinking behind a project I am part of called Hyperlocal, which is simply about helping your local world connect and work a little better, neighbor to neighbor. If that idea sits well with you, consider subscribing and take a look at Hyperlocal. Not because you owe me anything, but because a community that understands itself and looks out for its own is a healthier one in every sense of the word, including this one. So here is where we end, back where we began. There is a waxy substance your body cannot live without, that your own liver makes by the gram every single day. It was never the villain on that blood test page. It is essential cargo. And now you know the real story, that the danger was never the cargo at all, but the traffic and the broken roads, and that the road, with patience and a little knowledge and the right help, can be repaired.